Hello, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America. We're taking a look at race and racism in America in this series of programs. Today, we're taking up the issue of the multi-billion-dollar business called diversity and why it hasn't worked. Our guest is Pamela Newkirk, author of Diversity, Inc.
We have a diversity index, and we have diversity magazines and diversity conferences, but we don't have diversity yet in many of our most elite institutions, and I'm thinking of higher ed, museums, Hollywood, fashion, law. If you look at the numbers in many of these institutions, they are still falling way short of having racial diversity.
Indeed, they have. Pamela Newkirk, she's a professor of journalism at New York University, the award-winning author of Spectacle, The Astonishing Life of Ota Benga, Within the Veil, Black Journalists, White Media, and the editor of Letters from Black America. And thank you so much for joining us again.
Such a pleasure to be back.
I know you were here for Ota Benga, Spectacle,
yes.
And that was 3 years ago.
Yeah, that book came out 4 years ago, actually,
right.
Which is, yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us again with another book. We were talking
yes.
beforehand, you know. I keep track of you writing, a true writer, because you're writing all the time.
Yeah, these things take time. So yeah, you end one and you, like soon after you start another one, kind of go underground and then reemerge.
Reemerge
3-4 years later.
Right, so here we are. We'll see you again in 3 years, right? You know?
I don't know.
With the next book. What drew you to this particular topic?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I was on the train. I was on Amtrak. In fact, I was going to a book event for Spectacle, and I was coming home and I was like reading yet another article about another disappointing report on diversity. And I don't remember if it was Google, but it was one of these, yet another survey, yet another study. Oh, we're disappointed. And it's like that's been the line for much of my career, and I'm sure yours as well. They do these surveys, and year after year after year, we see that diversity is not being realized in most of our major institutions. And so I said, why are they hiring all of these czars and all of these consultants, and they're spending so much money on this enterprise that fails? And would they devote that much money to something else that failed and keep doing the same thing?
Over and over again.
Over and over again.
Expecting a different answer.
Exactly.
And always getting the same one.
Right. And is that insanity, or is it willful, or what is going on? So I wanted to kind of lift the curtain on the industry of diversity and to look at it as the business that it is, and also to see how it was being played out in these major institutions.
So a failing business, diversity is a failing business, but it employs so many thousands of people.
Right, and
I
the
think
numbers,
you can even major in it in college when it's a college major.
Yes,
now.
You can go to many elite schools and get a certificate or a degree, and everywhere you turn, you see the word. So people are talking about it, even though when you say the word, a lot of people, their eyes go up in their head because we've been hearing it for so long, and to what end?
Right.
It's not really moving the needle.
So you published this book at a very important time. It's a half a century since the Kerner Report.
Exactly.
Talk to us a little bit. That's how I got into the business.
Right.
Don't tell anybody.
Well, I think it's
half a century ago.
Right. So, my first book, which was published 20 years ago, looked at the entry of a generation of journalists, you included, that got their jobs due to that explosive report that was commissioned by President Johnson, which talked about newsrooms and how they were shockingly backward in the hiring. At the time, they were only really talking about African American journalists who were less than 1%. Held less than 1% of newsroom jobs.
And women. So it was African Americans
yes.
and women, and they
But
described it as
yeah.
window dressing on the
Right.
set.
But the
right?
report specifically talked about black grievance and
Right.
how those issues, it said something like the media report on blacks as if they don't marry, die, and attend PTA meetings. And so it was the first time that there was serious consideration to the issues of Black America by the mainstream media, and finally the doors started opening, mainly because they wanted someone to go into these like tense urban areas to figure out what was going on, and guess who they wanted to send in?
I know, I think it was the rioting, right? You
Yeah.
know, they said, Jenkins. You know,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, many black journalists could name the riot that was responsible for their jobs at that time. So here we are now, 51 years later, and we're still, the news industry is still having the same conversations about diversity, and now people of color are close to 40% of the population, are expected to be the national majority by 2045. And we're still having these newsrooms in which people of color are radically underrepresented.
And sliding back, too. The numbers are going down.
Yes, blacks and Latinos lost
Right.
a lot of ground. Yeah.
Right, right. In the book, you talk about 3 areas, so let's tackle them one by one. There's academia, which,
Right.
you know, is a very ivory towerish kind of existence anyway. Hollywood, and then corporate America. So,
Right.
so you're part of academia, so
Right.
you experience this on a daily basis.
Pretty much. I'm one of the 3% of African American professors who are on a tenure track in universities in this country.
In the entire country.
In the entire country, and that includes historically black colleges and universities. So,
right. Which
I mean, that's
3%.
3%.
50 years after the Kerner report.
50,
and
right.
when everybody woke up and said, oh, we should do something about
Right,
this.
right.
And it's not being done.
Right.
So what when you say including the historically black colleges?
Right. So that's black professors at degree granting
Which shoots
institutions.
the percentage up.
So that includes the historically white and the historically black institutions.
So what's the difference for you experiencing it as a black woman who has made this tenure track happen? What's the difference for you, do you think?
You mean, why did it happen for me? You know, why did it happen for any of us who make it, right? Someone's going to make it, but we look more at them than we look at the many who don't get the opportunity, the many who don't. I mean, I know I stand on the shoulders of many African American women and men who didn't get the opportunity that I had. And I remember even, I think I owe my job to New York University was on academic probation for accreditation because it did not have diversity. So I think oftentimes those of us who are given these opportunities, it's because they're being pushed in some way. How I made it through tenure is another story, right? So my first book was looking at race in the media, and it wasn't something that would guarantee one tenure in an institution, but you know, luckily I did get the kind of respect outside of the institution that kind of forced their hand, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
So Hollywood, you know, you write about the Oscars So White episode. That was interesting. That was, you know, a trending hashtag written by a woman who had no intention of creating that kind of.
Who was a lawyer, you know, working in Washington, and she just did that one tweet because for the second year in a row, there were no people of color who were nominated for acting Oscars. And so she just tweeted Oscars So White, and by lunchtime, it was like trending globally. But it seems to take these kind of either embarrassing episodes or riots or some kind of like real pressure before institutions take this issue seriously. It's an issue that we've grappled with for 50 years and counting, and yet we're still at this place where there's so little change. And so we'll see a flashpoint and we'll see activity, and then it kind of, you know, we don't hear about it again into the next outrage.
Yeah, what you say in the book in terms of solutions for all of this, you seem to point to white America changing its understanding of what race is about and what black people are about, or
I mean, that's part of it because, you know, like the 1619 Project at the New York Times, there's a lot of resistance to the reality of race in this country. I think most people are pretty illiterate about what has happened over those 400 years.
right?
I mean,
So they don't understand that 1619 was when the first slaves
right.
arrived
So the
in
racial
Virginia.
mythology is part of the problem when we look at diversity. You know, many people think that it's anathema to excellence, that you can't have diversity and have excellence. And it's part of the mythology of race that to have diversity is accepting someone who's inferior in some way. So we have to overcome a lot of these issues around race, what we think about people of color. And it's so deeply embedded into the national consciousness that I don't know if people are aware of those embedded ideas. I mean, it's been in film and it's been in books and it's the air we breathe. This notion that people of color, particularly African Americans, are somehow intellectually inferior. I mean, these ideas did not just spring out of thin air. I mean, they were taught for centuries and decades at places like Harvard. And, you know, you still have vestiges of that ideology embedded in much of our curricula.
Sure, and the Ivy League schools having to rename their colleges because they were named after slaveholders, major,
right.
you know,
Yeah.
racists, so to speak.
Yeah,
right?
and so we're having this moment of reckoning. We've had it before, and I think we get ahead of our skis when we think that these signs of progress, like a Black Panther movie doing so well, or the new sculptures outside of the Metropolitan Museum by Wangechi Mutu, that these beautiful, powerful Black women who greet you at the door of the Metropolitan Museum, those are wonderful symbols of progress, but is it a one-off? I mean, will we see people of color actually integrated into the main of American life and not celebrate every one thing that happens? And I think we've been doing that now for at least 5 decades. We celebrate the Carol Jenkins, the Pamela Newkirk, who somehow made it through. We don't know why. We know, though, that there were many other people who had the same ability, who had, who were talented, who had these skills and who did not get the opportunity. And that's what we have to be mindful of. I think oftentimes white America will say, well, we're the exceptions. And it's like, no, we were the ones who finally got the opportunity. Right.
Well, social media is a place where you see this almost daily. The first African American this, that, a first Black woman who,
But here we are in 2019 still talking about first. And we're talking about first for a group that's been here for 400 years. Why are we still talking about first?
The diversity business, you give some really shocking examples. Google, a tech giant, which theoretically wants to do something, and in a couple of years spent like $250 million.
Like a year they spend $100 million or more every year
trying to increase their
on diversity initiatives.
Yes, so that's millions of dollars.
And just think if that money was spent just hiring people of
color
instead of this whole apparatus around the thing.
Because you say in the book that when they started they were at 2%, and after $250,000 they were still at 2%.
Not a quarter of a million. You mean like 125,
100, a quarter of a
150
billion,
million.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Let's put the M's and the B's where they belong, but substantial amount
substantial amounts of money.
Of money. And so what did they say was responsible for that no progress whatsoever after all?
Well, they just say, oh, this is disappointing and we'll try harder. It's what the Academy of Motion Pictures said after 2 years of having no actors of color nominated. We'll try hard. When they're caught, I say in the book, it's like a game of whack-a-mole. You know, the ones who are caught say something, and then they go back into the trenches, and then the next year we see another disappointing report. So that's what I wanted to look at, the tension between the conversation, the rhetoric around diversity and the billions expended every year, and then the lack of diversity. Like, what's going on there? This is not rocket science.
I know, but it seems to be harder than that, right? It's
treated as if, you know, to hire people of color is to do something so different than what you do for any positions that you're hiring. You tap into different social networks. You tap into different, you know, professional networks. It's not that hard to do. And yet we treat it as if it's somehow just we don't know how to do this. Why?
When I was reading your book, I said, I wonder how many people of color are participating in the diversity efforts.
Well,
are they being hired there as opposed to?
Well, in many instances, they are the diversity in these institutions. They are the Yeah, you have one person, you're diverse. Now you give two examples of good news, and one is Coca-Cola and Columbia. Talk to us about Coca-Cola and what they... Well, yeah, Coca-Cola is a case study I did after the landmark discrimination lawsuit that was filed by 4 African Americans. They actually hired someone who looked at the metrics across the company, looked at promotions.
Big global company.
Yes, so. Looked at, you know, who was getting promotions. Everything was looked at according to race and gender. Who was getting the promotions? Who was getting the bonuses? Who was being hired? Who wasn't? And when those metrics were done, you can detect the patterns of bias, and only after that can you intervene. And so they did that over a number of years. I think it was 5 years that they continued to look at those numbers and to make those interventions where needed. And they managed to bring the numbers up substantially, but it took major effort and intention from the top. As Columbia University President Bollinger says, this doesn't happen by accident. To change this, it has to come from the top, and it has to be intentional. And so at Coca-Cola, that is a case study where any institution can look at what they did, how they did it, and
they don't need to study again.
You don't need to recreate the wheel. Now do it.
Right.
Do what they did.
One of the ways so many of these things were resolved, again, on a one-by-one cases through the courts. And you indicate that the courts now are so conservative that it's very difficult
and
to get through.
Right, getting more conservative every day. It's harder to prove bias. It's always been hard to prove bias anyway, to prove racial discrimination. So these institutions have to take this on as an issue of justice, not as a legal matter, which is how it's being handled now. How do we cover our bases so that we're not sued? Or how do we... Instead, they need to actually look at it as an equal rights, kind of the issue that drove initiatives in the 60s was this issue of injustice. I mean, that's kind of been taken out of the whole diversity conversation. It's become like this, we are the world, this feel good, like we'll do this to be nice.
Right. And to not get sued.
Right, and to not be sued, but it still comes down to justice, right?
After working on this and looking at all the studies, do you I mean, if you say that part of the answer is that white America has to be retrained to see race as something else, to see people of different colors and persuasions as
Well, yeah,
something else.
I mean, I think
how long would that, how do we do
I
that?
think it even starts with interrogating your, not just your social circles. I mean, how many rooms have you been in? Like hundreds of people, and you're the only African American, and maybe the wait staff.
Right.
And
well,
maybe
now, running a small nonprofit, we have a rule that we don't participate in anything that is not diverse. And we have actually had to do it to say,
Yeah.
sorry, we're not showing
I
up.
mean,
You have all
I've
white.
been in so many of those rooms,
Right.
and these are progressive circles, publishing,
Sure.
and
Oh,
journalism, and you know, all of the worlds, the intersecting worlds that we're in. I move in and out of these spaces, and there's no awareness of how homogenous these spaces are, and then that homogeneity is reproduced in the workplace. Because who do you hire? You hire who you know. You hire who you're familiar with, who, you know, who other people in your circles rave about. Well, they couldn't rave about us because we're not there.
Not there.
Right?
We are not there.
Yeah.
No, well, you and I have been in. I've been in a room of 1,000 people,
Oh
and
my gosh,
the only black person. So
it happens,
which is astonishing.
It happens so
in
often.
2019 that could actually take place in New York City.
And
but
it keeps happening.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, we usually ask our guests to place themselves in Black America. We do it at the top, but I'm going to do it at the bottom, and then ask you about the power, the strength of Black America. But tell us just a little bit about your background, how you grew up, and the influence there.
Born and raised in New York City. Two parents who also were born and raised in New York City. I went to public schools. I went to New York University. I'm New York through and through. Can't you hear the New York? So, yeah, and from the time I was a teenager, I wanted to be a journalist. I had been inspired by, it was Melba Tolliver having that afro.
Right, right.
And I
Wonderful
remember
Melba.
when she was taken off the air, or they wouldn't show her on the air until she got rid of her afro. And I had an afro at that time, and I was just so inspired by that story and by her courage and just her owning her Black womanhood. And
isn't it amazing that there are still cases now where kids' dreads are being cut off, and where this
oh my
whole
gosh,
idea.
we just saw that recently,
Right,
right?
well, the whole idea.
Wasn't it the NFL that got
Right,
behind this
you know,
this program?
whole issue of hair.
Yeah, we're still, so that's what kind of inspired me, and here I am.
So, and the power, the strength of Black America lies in?
Resilience. You know,
3 years ago when you were here, you said words.
Yes.
Yes, which was a great journalistic answer, but now you're saying?
Resilience, 400 years, we're still standing. You know, some of us, we're bowed and broken, but many of us are still standing tall, still here, resilient.
So the book Diversity Inc. You're going. It will be out in the public as this show is airing. And what do you hope the next step is for this? Pointing out this problem of 50 years of no progress.
Well, just, you know, no more excuses. At least come up with new ones. If like the same old ones, the pipeline, we can't find any, old, done. Come up with something new that no longer flies.
And what would the new, if you could put the words in, what would the new be?
Just hire people of color and stop it. Like, there is no other excuse.
And promote. And pay the same.
And pay, right.
And
like equality, not a little bit of equality, all the way.
All the way. Well, thank you so much, Pamela Newkirk, for being with us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
The book is Diversity Inc. Please get it so that you'll understand how much progress we have not made. And she points the way of making sure that race does not define everything still. And thanks to you all out there for joining us as well. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and we will see you the next time.
Oh, thank you. You're so